Command those who are rich, shout rich, in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, shout do good, to be rich, shout be rich, in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. There is the reading. Shout amen. Please be seated. Lord, we ask you to pour your spirit out and work a miracle today. In Jesus' name, amen. Come on, shout. Generosity matters. Shout it. As I indicated on last week, for those who were with me last week, one of the ways of talking about the radical love of God expressed in Jesus Christ is to use this language, extraordinary generosity. When you read in the Gospel of John, chapter 3, verse 16, where it says, "For God loved the world so much that he gave his one and only Son, that whosoever believe in him would not perish but have everlasting life." That's extraordinary generosity. When you read in the book of Romans, where Paul writes that while we were yet sinners, Christ Jesus died for us, for the ungodly. That's extraordinary generosity. When you think about your life and over the last decades of living, and think about the various things that God has forgiven you for, that's extraordinary generosity. An easily overlooked fact, but very much true, is embedded at the heart of the gospel and what it means to be a Christian is this notion of God's plan to redeem the world, to repair the world, to transform the world, to redeem and transform your life and my life through extraordinary generosity. That's part of the big ideal of this message. Here's the other part of the big ideal of this message. We are all richer than we think, at least most of us. There's a few exceptions to this rule, people who backs are up against the wall. But most of us are richer than we think. The problem is we don't feel like we're richer than what we think. And the reason for that is margin. Everybody shout margin. We have too little or no margin at all. Why is it that we have small margin? I love the way you ask questions. We have small margin because the more I have, the more I think I need, and the more I want. But why is that? Well, partly because we have this upgrade mentality, and I talked about that last week, but also partly because we have a tendency to compare ourselves against the wrong standards. Let me give you an example. There are 50,000 millionaires in Silicon Valley. 50,000. Among those millionaires, some of them drive Teslas. $85,000 car, Tesla. Now, we have a partner of this congregation who knows that I love cars. He works at a Tesla manufacturing plant. And about a week ago, he decided to surprise me, and he brought a Tesla over to the office and said, is the pastor here? Yeah. He came in and said, "Hey, you want to take a ride? You want to drive a Tesla?" I was like, "What?" So me and Pastor Tilden, Pastor Dan, we all ran out. I mean, I'm running out. Yes, they were with me. And I got in, boy. He said, "Come on, don't even need a key. You just you get into the thing and push the button, man, and the wheels." Anyway. So when we drove and came back, I parked it, right beside my car. Now, here's what I recognize. I realized that My car and a Tesla, they actually have something in common. They both have T in their names. Tesla, Toyota. See, that's. All right, now listen. So when I compare my car, 2009 Toyota Camry, 60,000 plus miles, to the Tesla, it looks, I could use an upgrade. But when I compare my Toyota Camry, 60,000 miles, hybrid, to the fact that 93% of the people who live in the world do not have a car. That when I compare my 2009 Toyota Camry to the fact that over 6 billion people do not have a car, suddenly it feels like a Tesla. See the point? Part of what drives us to want more and feel like we need more, which shrinks our margin, right, is this notion that we keep comparing ourselves against the wrong standards. And when we shrink our margin, we limit what God can do with our lives. So Paul is writing in this text. He's at the end of his life. You know Paul. Paul is the one who's primarily responsible for taking the life and teachings of Jesus Christ and translate them in terms of helping people to figure out what they mean in the non-Jewish world. So he's responsible for writing most of the New Testament, and he plants most of the early churches. And now he's at the end of his life, and he's about to transition his leadership authority over the church, over to his protege, Timothy. And he's saying to Timothy, these are the most important things I'm sharing with you that you've got to really teach the people in your congregations that you're overseeing. And one of the things I need you to teach them is how to move the heart of Jesus, and pay attention to the fact that you've got some rich people in that congregation, and you want to say to those rich people that you being rich means that you have a challenge and a responsibility. Say challenge. Say responsibility. And in that sense, he's really speaking to us, because in comparison to most of the world, we're rich. Okay, we're rich with our iPhones and our iPads and our closets full of clothes. We're rich. So he says, all right, so first of all, he says, teach them about their challenge. And this goes back to last week, right? In verse 18, he says, command them or instruct them. There's a Greek word beneath that. It can be translated command or instruct or tell them, those who are wealthy in this present world, not to be arrogant. We talked about that last week. And, listen, not to put their hope in their wealth, which is so uncertain, he says, but in God. Shout, in God. Here's what Paul is saying. Here's a challenge for us who are rich. We're rich. We have a tendency of allowing our hope to drift from trusting in God to trusting in our money. And we know that we've drifted in a sense when we put more faith in the provisions than we do in the provider. Now, what does that doesn't really make a lot of sense, other than the fact that some of us have been convinced and believing that we can save our way into security. And so many of us, if you think about the dreams that you have, they're financial dreams. They're like, I'm dreaming of, a bigger house, and I'm dreaming of a different car. I'm dreaming of a higher salary, and you're dreaming of what kind of clothes you'll be able to wear next year, and you're just dreaming. They're financial dreams. But how many of us have spiritual dreams? How many of us are dreaming about a heart that gets larger and larger, that trusts God in bigger and more and greater ways so that God can do greater things through our lives? But the two are connected. The two are connected. And so Paul says, so that's the challenge. So then there's the responsibility. So here's the question. Here's what I'm going to try to use the rest of my time to do today, and which is teach us, how do I bring margin back into my finances so that, and how do I do that in a way so that my trust remains in God and doesn't drift, doesn't drift to trusting more in money. All right, so let me back into that. Verse 18 starts this way. Paul says, here's the first thing they need to know. Those who are rich, command them to do good. Shout, do good. To be rich. Shout, be rich. To be rich in good deeds. Here is the basic premise that he wants us to learn. If you have more than most, you should do more than most. Now, Jesus says this in Luke. He puts it this way: to whom much is given, much is required. And what he's saying to Timothy, if you read it in the New Living Translation, he's saying this. He's saying, tell them to use their money, rich people, to do good. That they should be rich in good deeds. They should be generous to those who are in need. And they should always be ready to share. That's the heart of, he said, that's the kind of heart that God can use to repair and redeem the world. That kind of heart. So that's the first deal. Well, here's the second thing. In order for that to happen, it means I probably need to have some extra money, extra time. And I know that, and here's the point. Most of us have extra. We just waste it. Now I know somebody sitting out there, you're debating with me right now. I can hear it. You say, Pastor, I don't know who you're talking about. You're not talking about me. Because I'm living from paycheck to paycheck, and I'm just barely making it. If you look at my account, I don't have any extra. Yes, you do. I've been watching Supergirl. It's a really great series. And I haven't figured out whether she has X-rays eyes, but I know she's got those things that can put things on fire. But anyway, let me use my X-ray eyes and peer into your bank account. I'm going to peer in your bank account. I'm going to show you where the extra is. All right, you ready? All right, you've got your pen out. Get it right. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to show you where the extra is. Here it is. Coffee. Many of us go buy a cup of coffee every day, at least 5 days a week. And if you go to Starbucks or what's that other one? Pete's. Thank you, Pete's. I knew you do. You're spending somewhere between $3 to $5 a cup, about $25 a week. The average American spends somewhere between $1,000 to $1,200 a year just on coffee. Shout extra. All right. What about McDonald's? Burger King, Wendy's, fast food. How often do you go? You once, you twice, you just go on the weekends. What about the pizza trips you take out with your friends? You go out to have pizza. Or you take your kids to have McDonald's and Wendy's and all of that. Come on now, that shout extra. What about taking your girlfriend or your spouse out for breakfast once a week? Going to a restaurant a couple of times a month? Shout extra. What about cable? right, check it out. I did the research. And I discovered that in this country, that the lowest you generally pay with one, just say you just got HBO. That's it. HBO, you're going to pay somewhere between $15 to $20 a month. Most of us way past that. $80 a month, $120 a month, $130 a month. Watch this. For 900 channels, and you only watch 4. And on the 4, there's only 3 shows you watch regularly. Come on now. Shout extra. All right, and then you can just keep adding. Look, what about lottery tickets? Now listen, I'm not talking about the person, there's a $1 trillion jackpot, you go spend $5 one time just in case, because the odds are that you have 1 in 175 million, 1 to 175 million chances to win. You're more likely to get struck by lightning than to win. That's true, right? I'm talking to those of you all who go almost every day. $1 over here, $2, $3, $4, $5. Shout extra. And then why don't we let's just keep on adding, right? I'm just looking at your bank account. What about the fees your bank fees? Do you know banks make most of their money on fees? Because you went to an ATM that wasn't there, big fee. Because you went in rather than do the work at the ATM, you're supposed to go to the ATM, you went into the thing, big fee. You overdrew your account, big fee. Or that gym subscription you have that you don't use? Shout extra. Do you see how this keeps growing and growing? And you've been saying, oh God, I need more. No, what we have to do is we have to discipline our wants and redefine what we think we need. And I'm not suggesting cut out all your cable and stop drinking coffee and don't go to McDonald's. All I'm saying is you don't have to do it as much as you do it. And you can have extra. All right. That's in terms of money. Let me just say a word about time. Come on, shout time. A lot of us say, well, we don't have extra time. Well, check this out. If you work 60 hours a week, sleep 8 hours a day, you would end up with 52 hours of discretionary time a week. What do you think? We've got the time. We've got the money, most of us. There are a few exceptions. There's a few exceptions to this. But we don't plan how we use it. And so we waste it. And then we feel poor when in fact we're rich. Last point. Go to the movies. I like to go to movies. I wanted to go Saturday. James Bond was out. I'm a big Bond fan. One of my pastors said, you want to go? I said, yes, but I got to prepare. And it was such a struggle, oh my goodness. That's how much I love you. I did not go. All right, but here's the deal. Whenever I go to the movies, I spend minimum $15, usually $25. I got to pay for the ticket. I got to get me some kettle corn. I got to get me an icy. I'm just getting started, all right? Now, check this out. This is my concluding point. And one day, I spent $25 at the movies when almost half of the population of the world, about 3.1 billion people, live on less than $2.50 a day. And you and I can spend $25 at the movies in one day. Say extra. And what God says through Paul to Timothy to us is that I don't want you, if you are a Jesus follower, to consume all that extra on you. That I want you to use your money to do good. You should be generous to those who are in need. That's the NLT translation of what we just read. And always ready to share. And translation, you ought to have the wisdom of the poor widow. What do you mean? Well, let's pull that up. Let's go to Mark chapter 12. We'll see it pop up here in just a moment. It's a fascinating story that with some tremendous insight in it. Listen to what it says. Jesus sits down near the collection box in the temple. As a matter of fact, in that day, when you came into the temple, there were collection boxes like here. As a matter of fact, this is where we get it from. We model it after this. And on your way in or on your way out, you would simply drop your offerings. So Jesus sits by the collection box in the temple, and he just watches. As crowds, shout crowds, drop in their money. They're dropping in sacks of gold and sacks of silver, and some of them, watch this next verse. Many rich people, shout many rich people. Come on, read this next. Put in large amounts, read it. If you're writing, write that down. If you underline it. Many rich people put in large amounts. And Jesus is watching them put in large amounts, and he's not moved. He's just watching. Next verse. Then a poor widow came and dropped in 2 small coins. This is where we get this notion of widow myth, of the widow mite. But it's really not a mite. It's actually, those 2 coins are worth less than half of a penny. They represent about 6 minutes of work. It is as small of a financial currency as one could have. The Greeks and Romans didn't even have an equivalent to this Jewish piece here. It was as small as you get. She dropped these 2 coins in. Next verse. Immediately, Jesus calls his disciples. Hey, come here. He's suddenly moved. He's moved. He calls his disciples to him and said, I tell you the truth. Translation, check it out. This poor widow has given what? More than what? All the others who are making contributions, and he's moved by what she gave. What's the point? Here's the first point. It's not the amounts that move Jesus, it's the percentage. Next verse. Look at the next verse. For they gave a tiny part, say tiny part, of their what? Their extra. They're extra. If you make $10 million a year and you write a check for $1,000, that might impress me, but from God's perspective, God is not moved because that's only what? 0.001% of your income. But if you make $10,000 a year and you write a check for $1,000, that's 10% of your income. There's a whole lot more of your heart invested in the 10%. Your heart is driven by the percentages of your commitment. Next verse. For they gave a tiny part of their extra, but she, poor as she is, Jesus says, has given everything she had to live on. Shout everything. That's a percentage. Now, just so that you don't misunderstand this text, I don't think that he meant that she made herself destitute. I don't think that's what he meant. I think what he's saying is this, that probably in her day, she lived in an agrarian culture. She probably grew all of her food. She probably lived in a house that was already paid for, and that, either she inherited from her husband or the property, whatever the case is, she was basically set. So she made a decision that I'm going to live on this. And what I earn from my work, right, from selling my crops or from the cloth that I make and sell, what I earn from it, that's what I'm going to give away. That's her living, as they would say. So I believe she pre-decided, here's what I'm going to live on, and here's what I'm going to give away. And percentage-wise, she gave away tons. You want to dream about how to stretch your heart? You want to grow spiritually? That means your heart has to stretch. You know how to stretch your heart? Think about what percentage you're going to give away. Extravagant generosity. Now, here's a couple of things that get this. Speaking about her heart, and it's her heart that moves him. It's her heart that moves Jesus. Well, where did the money go that she's put in that box? What did they do with that money? Well, the tradition that shaped what happened to the money that was given to the box in the temple is really found in Deuteronomy chapter 14. They're going to throw it up here. Listen. Essentially, the money that's in that box did a couple things. So number one, it took care of worship and sacrifice responsibilities, yes. But number two, in this passage, you pick up the rest. That the law said that every 3 years, that all of the Jewish people were to bring a tithe, 10% of their crop and their animals, bring it to the nearest town, and there was a big storage room, say big storage. And they were to put all that stuff into the storage, right? And you can only imagine, must have been tons of storages, and they would just pile it in and pile it in and pile it in. And then for the next 3 years, watch, this is God's plan for working justice in the world. This is God's plan for redeeming. This is God's plan for repairing. This is God's plan for making a difference in the world. Watch. Then the rest of it, he says, here's what you're going to do with it over the course of the next 3 years. Here's what you do. Number one, you take care of the priests because they don't have property allotted, so you feed them. But number two, watch this, you take care of the foreigners. That's immigrants. Now, this is an insight for somebody, right? That the immigrants are moving in and they couldn't find a place, a job, or couldn't be taken care of. And God says, no, I'm going to take care of them out of this storehouse. Put it in so I can take care of them. The orphans. These are children whose parents are gone and they're left on their own, and somebody needs to feed them and somebody needs to take care of them. I'm going to take care of them out of this. And watch this, the widows. The widows. When the spouses die, they're left and they become destitute, many of them. But for somebody, not this particular one. And so what moved Jesus was that he looked at this woman, and the reason she gave such a big percentage was not just because she loved God, but she loved God so much that she was compelled to be a part of God's plan for making a difference in the world. She wanted to be a part of taking care of the priests and the temple. She wanted to be a part of feeding these immigrants who had no place to stay and nobody to take care of them. She wanted to be a part of feeding children who would have gone hungry and who would have died. She wanted to be a part of blessing other widows who didn't have it as well as she had it. That's what moved her. That's what moved Jesus. Jesus says, wow, when I look at her, I see a reflection of my heart. And through that, the world is changed. All right? What's the implications here of this teaching? Two quick implications. Number one, now, if you get this point, this will change your life. Let's say, forget the 10 Commandments or everything else. Just do this one thing I'm trying to teach you. It'll change your life. It'll build margin, and it'll give you the heart of a poor widow who felt rich and operated richly. What is it? I want you to go home and pre-decide what percentage are you going to live on. What percentage of your income you're going to live on. Can't be 100%. Don't let it be 100%. That means no margin. Is it going to be 90? Is it going to be 80? Let's say you decide 80. Anybody who's getting married, here's good wisdom for you. Even before you think about doing a budget, figure out what percentage of your shared income you're going to live on. Let's say you nail it at 80. All right, you get married at 80. Over the years, your income's going to rise, but you stay in terms of the percentage of living there. And what happens is, as your income rise and your lifestyle rise, watch this, you grow margin. You grow margin. You go back and figure out what percentage you're going to live on, and then take some of those examples I gave you at the beginning of this message, build it in, and then you begin to create margin. Secondly, figure out what percentage you're going to save. Thirdly, figure out what percentage you're going to give away. And it ought to be a percentage that helps your heart grow, positions you to be an instrument of God's extravagant generosity. There's a fellow here who I know, love. He lives on 50%, and he gives away the other 50% every year. That's how he lives. How are you going to live? Secondly, once you pre-decide what you're going to live on, save, and give, then also decide to give first. Make that the first check and say, who am I going to give it to? Well, find some organizations that line up with your values, that's out there making a difference in the lives of kids, that's making a difference in the lives of folk who you care about, and write the check to them first. And when you do that, here's 2 rules. 1, write the check, and then once or twice a year, go volunteer there. Don't just send a check, go volunteer so that your heart will be captured. And that's going to help you, and you're going to find out you're going to turn out big. I'm talking about how God wants to grow your heart, grow you spiritually. And you're going to find out, I want to give more and invest it. And here's what's going to happen. It's going to totally change your whole financial system. Because if you give first, you will save better, you will spend less, and you will despise debt, because debt steals your ability to give where your heart is. Your life. See, this widow, the more you try to hold on and save yourself into security, the more insecure you get, and the more you hold on. That's why most Americans, the richer we become, the less we give. But this widow, she teaches us, put your trust in God and give. And it'll change your life, but more than that, it'll change the world around you. All right, let me conclude here. So somebody's asking, what should I give? What's the percentage? Well, most Americans don't even think about giving on percentage until taxes. And then they accidentally follow it. So the median income in this country is $55,000 a year, and the giving that usually comes out of that is about 6%. So let me just suggest that maybe you ought to start there. Why don't you think about giving 6% away? Remember, it was the tithes that gathered everything into the storehouse. But this woman, she didn't just give a tithe, she gave far beyond. So tithe's good. It's important, but that's not the goal. It's about a generous heart that God can use to change. Now, that's a step I'm challenging you to take. It's a huge step, and it's going to create a huge difference in your life. But while you're praying about that, I'm going to ask Evelyn to come, and she's going to take us through how together in the next couple of weeks, we're going to take a much smaller step towards percentage giving and towards going and serving where we're giving to unleash extravagant generosity with no strings attached. Give God a hand praise for our new director, Transforming Community.
Good morning. All right, so I'm going to start by letting you know about 4 organizations that we're going to partner with this Christmas. We have East Palo Alto Charter School, Ecumenical Hunger Program, Feed the Children, and Second Harvest Food Bank. Now, you've probably heard of some of these organizations before. We've partnered with them in the past, but I'm going to tell you a little bit more about them. So East Palo Alto Charter School is located in East Palo Alto, and the students there are going to be the first in their families to go to college. Now, the statistic for STEM education in the Bay Area, students of color in the Bay Area, only 3 to 7% of them go into STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, in this technology hub of the world. And so EPACS is trying to change that by offering engineering and technology, science, even at the elementary school level. So we're excited to partner with them. Ecumenical, oh, we can clap it. Ecumenical Hunger Program is the largest emergency food distributor in East Palo Alto and Menlo Park. They offer food, clothing, household items for families in need. And during the holiday season, they impact 300 families a day. Now, we are, again, excited to partner with them. Feed the Children, you'll hear more about it when Anthony Evans comes in a couple of weeks, but Feed the Children is another amazing organization that's doing work right here in our backyard as well as around the world. In the Bay Area, 1 in 3 children is at risk for hunger. And Feed the Children is one of the organizations trying to combat that. And around the world, Feed the Children helps over 350,000 children. I mean, we were talking about orphans earlier. They're helping to feed the children. Now, lastly, Second Harvest Food Bank. You've probably seen some of the bins. We partnered with SDA last year to help Second Harvest Food Bank. One statistic about Second Harvest, in the Bay Area alone, and I had to double check this because I didn't believe the statistic, 1 million meals per week in the Bay Area alone. Second Harvest Food Bank is giving out 1 million meals all around the year, not just during Christmas. So again, we're excited to partner with them. How are we going to do this? We have Be Rich, and we've broken it down into 3 components: give, serve, and love. And we're asking everyone to participate in all 3 components. I'm starting here with the dates. So the give date is from now up until November 29th. Our 2 serve dates are December 5th and 12th, and our love dates are December 6th and 13th. Now I'll go into each one. We have give. Everyone say give. Give. Everyone say it a little louder. Give. Give. All right, so for give, we have 2 options. You can give one gift of $39.95, and that's going towards EPACS and EHP, all of it. We're giving all of it away. What that's going towards for the charter school, it's going to help them fund technology for the classroom. It's going to help them with the after-school programming that they have for the students and even for the parents. They offer parent leadership classes. And for EHP, it's going towards gifts for the teenagers for Christmas. Another option you have, or I guess before I moved from that, why $39.95, you might be wondering. Now, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand or to elbow the person next to you, but how many of us have seen an advertisement on TV that says you can get something for one easy payment of $39.95? Now, and I've done it too. And so you order it, you get it, you realize it's not exactly what you were looking for, so you either lose it, or you throw it away, or better yet, you wrap it back up and you give it away to somebody else. So, we're offering you the opportunity to give $39.95, and it's going to add up with all the other $39.95s, and we're giving it all away. Now, some of you may not be able to give $39.95. Some of you, we're talking about percentages, you're able to give more than that. So give as you can. Another thing that we're doing for Give is partnering with Feed the Children. So you can make an ongoing monthly commitment of $32 a month, and Anthony Evans will come and tell you more about that. So you're able to give now. You can give online. We have a designation for Be Rich. You can designate Be Rich on the offering envelopes up through November 29th, and we'll be giving that away to the organizations in December. All right, so that's give. Next we have serve. Everybody say serve. All right, we're asking everyone to give one morning or an afternoon of your time. We've set it up and made it easy for you. We've got 2 volunteer days. One is on December 5th at EPACS at the charter school, and one is on December 12th at EHP. Now, if you can't do either of those dates, that's fine. You can go volunteer at any nonprofit in the area, and we have a way for you to record those hours so that we can help track it as well. We just want to be giving away our time. Now, we have some pictures of EPACS. That will come. There they are. All right, so we're at the charter school this past April during Beautiful Day, many of you remember we were painting murals, we were helping them garden, and we'll do a lot of those same projects again on December 5th. And we also have some photos from EHP. We were there last Christmas. We helped them sort toys, clean out their warehouse, and we're really excited to partner with them again. All right, so that's give, we have serve, and now we have love. Everyone say love. All right, so with love, we're partnering with Second Harvest Food Bank, and we're collecting non-perishable food items. We're asking everyone to bring 3 pounds of food. Now, that might seem like a lot, but 3 pounds of food is only 1 jar of peanut butter and 1 jar of jelly. That's 3 pounds. So you can bring in non-perishable food items. We have more information on the website, and fill up the bins. They're already out and ready to go, and we're primarily going to fill them up on December 6th and 13th. All right, so you might be asking, okay, we'll get involved, but what about our children? Our CYM, Children and Youth Ministries, are fully involved. So I want to invite our CYM representative, Sarah, to the front. Everyone, give her a hand. All right. So one way that CYM is getting involved is she's got a baggie here of coins. We've given all of our children and youth a plastic bag, and we've asked them to go dig through the couches and around the house and pick as many coins as they can, and each class is trying to raise $39.95. That will go towards EPACs and EHP. Now, there are other ways that CYM is getting involved in the give, the serve, and the love, and we've outlined it on this card. We've got all the details, so parents, as you pick up your child after the service, after the gathering, you will find it, all right? Now, we have to set some goals. We have set these 3 for give, serve, and love. Our goal for give is to give away $25,000. Without even setting a goal last year, we gave away $10,000, and so this year we're trying to more than double it. If everyone gives $39.95, we'll easily hit this goal. With serve, our goal is 625 hours. Again, last year we didn't even set a goal, and we served over 300 hours, and this year we're trying to double it. And our love goal is to give away 2,000 pounds, 1 ton of food. If you remember last year, if you were here, you remember that the bins were overflowing, and we can do it again, and we'll hit 2,000 pounds of food. All right, so once again, before I sit back down, I'll just remind you of the dates. So our give date is Sunday. You can give even starting now up until Sunday, November 29th, and that's the day also for Feed the Children. You can serve on December 5th and 12th, and we'll open up sign-ups next week. And then our love dates for collecting food are the 6th and the 13th. All right? If you have any questions, I'll be at the table in the back after the gathering along with some of my team. All right? Thank you so much. Let's give Sarah a hand.
Come on, let's give God another hand praise. Awesome new director. Great, beautiful baby girl. Awesome. Also, I just want to remind you, you'll be able to give online as well. So in addition to the envelopes here, you'll be able to give online. Now, let me just wrap this up. And I'm going to say a whole lot more about this next week. This is really about the vision of the church. All right, so this is next week. But I'm going to wrap this up in 2 things that I like about this. If you take seriously what I just taught you, what percentage are you going to live on, save, and give away, and give first? Which means you will save better, you'll spend less, you'll be despising debt. If you take that seriously and say, okay, I'm going to at least take a small step forward and practice this. Not just give, but I'm going to actually serve with my church over the next several weeks. It sets you and it sets us up for 2 things that I live for. One, I believe that if we take Jesus Christ seriously and our relationship with him seriously, he will radically change your life. And number 2, if we collectively practice what we preach, he will use us to change the world. And that's what kind of church this church is called to be. So let me see your connection card. Just wave it. So here's what I want you to do. Under the response to the message, here's what we want you to do. I want you to, I'm praying that you will simply write, I will pray about giving, serving, and loving. You'll spend this week praying about whether or not you're going to do it starting next week. I will pray about giving, serving, and loving. And I want you to turn that card in. That's your statement of accountability. And get back here next week. You don't want to miss next week. God bless you.